get her started. Well, I'm the director of experience design here at Accushield. I've worked in design for 18 years. I've been 10 years as a lead designer. I have a background in wet and digital darkroom photography, graphic design, digital art and imaging. I went to undergrad at the University of North Georgia and grad school at the Pratt Institute. I currently have a mixed bag of designers slash product designers and architects. My team is small. I have Elliot, Claire, and Anurag. Hi, guys. And our workflow currently is Figma, Confluence, Jira, and of course, everybody loves Zeplin. I refuse to work at any job without Zeplin, and I'll get into that a little bit more later.
Yeah, let's dive right in though. Colleen, it would be great if you could set the stage for the audience a bit and tell us kind of about Accushield from the lens of the product itself, from your point of view, before the design system came about. How have your customers known and used Accushield over the years?
So Accushield was started as a entry management system for senior living. Our founder, Charles Mann, he grew up in senior living. His dad owns the Mann House, and then he took it over. And he saw like everybody had a paper book, so they would sign in and sign out, so they knew who was coming in and out of the community. So he said, well, what if we digitize this and did a kiosk? And so Accushield was born. And during COVID, we became the first line of defense for seniors. As you know, we know that that population is super sensitive and needs to be taken care of. So we were within 45 days, we had a thermometer on our kiosk that was taking temperatures and preventing people and bad actors who were sick and pretending they weren't sick from going in to the senior living and saving a lot of lives. So we became known as a COVID machine because of like our screening questions and the fact that we'd be like, you're not allowed to go in. It's your temperature's too high, etc., or you've been exposed. Or we were one of the first platforms that like did the screening that had the question, have you been out of the United States within the last 45 days, to also help prevent people from coming in and out. And as you can see, prior to me joining on the screen, this was our design system. Before we had a design system, I should say, you see lots of blue, lots of green, not like the most ideal user experience, but it worked and it helped save a lot of lives during COVID. You can see that even though the kiosk image there and the desktop are from the same platform, it's very a disjointed experience. The only, I guess, consistency you could say is the overuse of blue and green. But it did what it needed to do. It saved a lot of lives during COVID.
Right. And I know this is this is again, like you mentioned, the pre-design system. And I know the next slide, you also have that like pre-design system view with the mobile as well.
Yes, and you can see the same thing in our mobile app. Our mobile app was a little better, and some of this is like newer as my team was onboarding and all that stuff. But you can see that like there's a lot of like color usage to indicate like things and clicks, and there's disparate fonts and not consistency. The most consistent thing again was the use of blue and green, which is not a bad thing. Like it was consistently inconsistent, but there was no source of truth. Like we had no Zeplin, there was no design system. People were working straight off of the dev team was getting literally PowerPoints and sketches sent to them. And so they were just trying to copy it and use what they knew. Literally, I think at one point they were sent a eyedropper and were like, hey, let's drop this and make it this color. So there wasn't even like consistent style guides because there was no source of truth and we needed one.
Right, very helter skelter. And so I think like while we're talking about this kind of pre-design system, I also want to kind of hear about like the business state as well. What was happening at Accushield at this time? What were some of like the driving forces within the business? And what did all that mean for your UX team in terms of like your goals and your focus?
So I was brought on because they saw a need to bring the platform into the future and to have consistent UX. And they saw the need to have product managers and product designers. So I was the first designer that was brought on. And then I was going to build, I obviously was tasked with building the team and also building our design system. The goal is that post COVID, we had a lot of customers that are like, we don't need you anymore. Like, COVID's gone. Like, you're just a COVID screening machine. And people forgot that we did much more than that we did credentialing, and we helped prevent, bad actors from coming in and out that wanted to do harm or rob people, etc. Like, you want to know who's going in and out to see your grandmother or your uncle. And a lot of people forgot that, like, we don't just do screening questions. So the idea was, let's bring our system into the future, give it a new, like a lift and shift, launch it with a new design system, improve our back end and our front end at the same time, while reminding people that we're more than just a COVID machine, that we're an entry management system that does a lot, that we can do a lot, and that you don't have to just use us for health screening. You can use us as a time clock, and to also just elevate the brand. And then through this like churn, we needed to do something fast to do this, but also maintain good ROI. Like, because naturally people are upsizing, downsizing. We had to as a company, so we had to be smart. And with that, I wanted us to learn quickly, fail fast, and be able to scale, and not necessarily chase perfection, but pass that swim test. And just to stack rank what was a priority. The priority was getting everything to be consistent and look consistent, no matter where you were. And for the users to see and feel those mental models, and to not have to overly guess or estimate like how they're supposed to go about from thing to thing, but also remind people that we're not just a kiosk, that we have a dashboard where you can go and look at higher metrics for your communities or even at the corporate level, and that we have a mobile app that helps aid in the speed when you do have lines, say during shift change, to help users sign in and out more quickly, and to improve those experiences and take our app to that next enterprise level and into the future and grow our customer base.
Right. And I think a lot of, we kind of know where this is headed. A lot of the gaps you mentioned were like UI UX focused, and obviously that's your role as well. So essentially this is, I guess, where your design system starts to kick in. And I know a lot of folks in the audience are probably curious about this step. Can you share a bit about how that initiative started? What brought up the idea, I guess, of launching a design system, and how was it received, I guess, initially across like the business?
When I initially came in, what I did was I spent a week just literally going in, right clicking into our website, inspecting code, looking and noticing like things that weren't consistent, noticing that there were multiple style guides for the same object on web pages, like noticing the inconsistency, and that some of this stuff was affecting performance, and which is a huge part of the user experience. If you have the same button 3 times on a page, but 3 separate style sheets are controlling it, it's not going to be a good experience, especially as we know that like a part of accessibility is not only maintaining for people of all able bodiments, but also all economic means. And like some of our communities are in smaller areas that don't necessarily have access to high speed internet. Like they're still on DSL, because fiber does not run out there yet. Like it's something that has to be considered. And so when it came about to optimizing in the design system, first people were like, well, we'll just make everything consistent. And I was like, no. we need to have one source of truth, one place where we decide Accushield blue is now going to be Accushield purple, that we change that hex at that top level and it propagates down. So it took a while to get everybody that wasn't necessarily technically or UX based on board, and to get them to like see the vision and to see how having one source of truth in a design system to where you're like, all buttons are like this, and you just change the top level of that button and then it propagates down. And also just how its efficiency and allows for us to grow and expand and to add new features more quickly and to innovate more quickly, and to not have to worry and spend 6 months thinking about like colors or the curve on a button.
Right. I think proving that importance of a design system to like leadership is often kind of a challenge that a lot of companies face. And now I kind of think we're kind of getting into like the heart of the session, what most of the people are here to see, and that's kind of your team's like 5-step design system roadmap. So if you want to take a screenshot of this slide, now's the time to do it, because we're going to jump right in. But these 5 steps, in your words, define, build, adapt, pilot, and scale, and we'll walk through all of them right now.
Okay, define. So what we did is we wanted to create a simple North Star for what our design system was going to do. We wanted it to make sure that with the lean resources that we had, that we could ship products faster and efficiently, while also giving customers a consistent, high quality experience. We knew that we had to deliver and make things consistent, and we had to do it quickly. We had to take those disparate screens, and we needed to make them consistent across the Internet of Things that Accushield does on their platform. We wanted users not to have to remember, in the dashboard, it's you check this and do that. We wanted to maintain the same mental models and that consistency across the board. And as a team, like it started with just me, and we knew that I knew that I was going to have to bring on one more person, so I added Elliot. And because we're such a small team and there's 3 basically applications within the platform, I knew that we had to have the design system established and done for us to get defined to get to this next process. And with that next process, because we were a 2-person team that ended up becoming a 3-person team when Claire joined, we knew that we had to have a foundation that we could build from. And so with that, I chose to do material design. Why wouldn't you do material? Material is literally, Google has billions of dollars. They've put tons of research into it. They've done tons of things. It's open source. It had a React library that we were going to use, our developers liked. We could take a basis, we could customize it, skin it in our actual colors, do nuances, and it would allow us to do more innovative things instead of arguing over what our Accushield red for alerts was going to be, or if our curves were going to be 16-point curve or a 24. And it also gives you a basis of an 8-pixel system, which is scalable across many devices. It's very good, very thing. And then we just got to literally adopt this and build from it, which gave us all the speed that we wanted, while still helping us to create that consistent experience by injecting material into our library. And as you can see, material doesn't have to look like material. You can skin it to be your brand, and then you can innovate and address your use cases that are not necessarily addressed by materials, and create custom components. You can see that we combined some tables with some actions, and you have like these different things where we've gotten, a more innovative filter where that drawer expands and closes there in your my top right will probably be your top left from you guys viewing. But it allowed us to really just jump off and key off on like creating a better structure, a better navigation, giving people the hierarchy of text design, and just giving us a recipe. We had all the basic ingredients so that, it's like the periodic table. We can create anything now because we have this great basis here.
Right. And I think this is like a great segue now into Zeplin, which, no bias is what we love to talk about. But since that was like, I know, a big piece, as I understand it, of how you and your devs and your broader organization were able to accept and adopt this newly launched design system. Can you talk a bit about why you turned to Zeplin for your design system program, especially for those who may not be as familiar with Zeplin as a design system tool? Can you give some insight into what Zeplin helped you solve for?
So I am a day one adopter of a Zeppelin. I've been using since it was the original 4 and it was a startup. I actually, when I was at AirWatch VMware, paid for it myself out of pocket for 6 months because I believe so much in how much it could prove to make my team faster and more efficient. And it did. And so with every organization I have joined since then, I have brought a Zeppelin on. And with every release, Zeppelin gets better and better. And it makes that design to delivery to dev seamless. It takes that broken language between designers and developers, and it creates a consistent like translation. When I brought it up at Accushield, my boss, Jack, was because he had used Zeppelin at a past job and it was a while ago and they maybe necessarily didn't use it the correct way. And he was unsure, but I was like, no, wait, we're going to try this. I'm going to show you we're going to save 50-60% of the time, and we're going to have stuff be almost pixel perfect instantaneously because development's going to have a source of truth. They're going to know. They're not going to have to we're not going to have tons of meetings and hour-long discussions about like, no, do this, no, do that, because we're going to have that source of truth. So what we did is we signed up for an account. I started with one user story, gave the project to a development team, a small one, on a Thursday. By that Monday, we had a pixel perfect, I would have released design to development. Correct interactions and everything, and merely what all we had done was upload and created our style guide and uploaded a few screens. And when everybody saw, they were like, okay, we need to roll this out. So then we just started rolling it out to different teams. And now everybody knows that if it's not in Zeppelin, it's not the source of truth. If that color or that style or somebody's telling you, no, it's not in Zeppelin, we don't do it. Our team loves the fact that everything is documented in one clear place. Whereas prior to adopting Zeppelin, we were using Figma, and developers didn't know where to click to get those, to get the like specs that you get in Zeppelin that are so clearly out there and upfront. They would guess. And it would be like, no, that's too small, or that's too big. Or they're like, well, we just use a dropper to guess the color there. And it's like, well, there's this button. And they're like, well, that's hard to find. And like with Zeppelin, you have clear sections and you have clear pages, and it's not a giant canvas. Whereas Figma is a giant canvas and makes sense to designers because we think big whole world. But if you're a developer, you go boop, ba boop, ba boop, step by step by step. So Zeppelin allows that holistic view that designers are used to get translated to that step by step, which has made us in less than, I've been here, it'll be 3 years, and I believe November or December, and we've completely lifted and shifted our platform both front and back end. By us using Zeplin, it's bought our development team time to optimize our back end and do some really great things. And um, I'm so thankful for the partnership with Zeplin because it's allowed us to do so many great things for our customers.
I wish I could say that we had like briefed you on what to say talk about Zeppelin, because if you keep talking like that, we're gonna have to pay you to do our ads. But yeah, that's all the things we love hearing. Yeah, again, like I feel like that's something we hear a lot. The Figma canvas is great on the design phase, but once you start moving to building, it gets a little complicated for having the whole rest of the team in there. Excuse me.
Right. And it gets really confusing because, like with Zeppelin, we have like all these great means to like tag and like do into conversations and like, I've created onboarding guides like as you see here. I built a deck.
Yeah,
Like
this
you
is
see
this is
what I
something. Sorry, this is something that actually Srini from the audience asked as well. So like just I shouldn't have interrupted, but yeah, dive right into like rolling it out. How you exactly implemented Zeppelin.
So what I did was like start with one team. And I had originally create this original guide is from my days back at VMware. And I literally just took this um and I basically pasted some of this within an email to the team we were working with, got on a call, did like a simple walkthrough, and then shared. Zeppelin's got some great resources. It's broken down by developer, product owner, and designer, like Zeppelin for those people, and just shared those and answered questions. Um, and the team just was like, this is easy. And they now know how to invite each other to, they know, oh, can I get access to this? Oh, Colleen, we noticed that this hasn't been added to the style guide. Is this something new that we need to consider? Or is this a mistake? Which is wonderful. Like to have your team go, this is not in our source of truth. Is this something new that needs to be added, or did you guys accidentally overlook this? Um, which is what you want to hear. You want your team to call, like, you want that discussion back and forth because that leads to like better design delivery and better delivery to your customers. And I find that the resources and just it's the ease of use. Like there hasn't been a lot of like questioning of a lot of things. We do when somebody new try to like send them the resources and a guide to onboard them. But I would say people get invited, they poke around and they're like, okay, let's go. Let's get this started. Let's have and I would say with the flows feature, we've been able to really like go that next level with tweaking like micro interactions and stuff, which is really what we're trying to do now.
Yeah, I mean, and we could talk about flows and all these other features for all day, I'm sure. But I want to kind of go back to like the heart of the talk, which is design system adoption. I know it's a
Mhm.
really challenging area, so I kind of want to circle back. Can you talk a bit about how Zeppelin makes a difference with dev and product adoption of the design system? How is Zeppelin kind of assisted in that area? How does it compare to alternate ways that you would do that?
Um, I mean, before Zeppelin, we all know what we would do, or if you don't have Zeppelin, you would send somebody a link to Figma, and like I was describing before, dev would either know how to inspect and do the dev mode, or they would guess and use an eyedropper, or they would ask you for like we had dev asking us, can you do us like a PowerPoint where you spec out how big these things are and what the colors and list everything out that you would see here, and there would be a lot of back and forth. And I know that with having teams of developers and people that are in multiple time zones, like my designers aren't in person. Like I have they're in different time zones, just like my main development teams in India. Like with other places, it's just easier and you get that 24/7 design and delivery, and questions get answered more quickly because you have that source of truth that allows you to scale across. And like, say, we've had where we've created a flow for the team and we forgot an error, like to show what an error was. And the team was like, well, you didn't have this screen, but because of the style guides, we saw that like this is what this pop up with this style is in our style guide. So we did this. Is this okay? Yes. Most of the time when the team does that, if there's something that we don't have to spec out a lot of that stuff anymore, and they can make really smart, educated guesses because we have a whole design system done in Zeplin with the style guides that let you know this is what it looks like if it's a hover state, if there's an error, if you have any kind of little things, if it's filled, press, etc. So they can go and look through all those things. And it gives everybody what they need, like the history. They can see, if something gets updated, we can have comments going back and forth, and I can say, oh yeah, we changed this. Notice that there are these changes. They can go through and compare. And it just allows them to like click in and say, oh, okay, this button is used in 40 other screens. Is it gonna, they didn't necessarily like say we didn't do a drop down button, like all the different states in this screen that we're showing here. They can click and see, oh, it's used in other screens, and go to those other projects and say, oh, it's used like this. And then I see that, my friend Shri, he worked on this other button, so I can talk to him and say, what's the name of that design token or code, so we can reuse it and we can make sure that we have that one source of truth, and it's a change once, propagate.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we zoom out a little bit, it sounds like one of the major ways Zeppelin has contributed to your design system program is by being a hub for documentation and organization.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a bit about that and how that's benefited your design team as well as others within the organization?
Yeah, all like it's our source of truth. Like you can see here, all our projects are linked to this design system library. The library is we have a master file. The master file, if a component gets updated, it gets pushed to the library and then gets propagated down. Same with Zeppelin and Figma. Everything is documented. You can see here we have our color palette is fully done in there, text and style, spacing, all of our different components. So, okay, we're going to have what our mobile picker looks like, what our dialog content looks like. We also have what that we're adding in here, like that for different screens for adaptability and things like that. But everybody knows that this is the how everything is supposed to be. It's the source of truth. It's our Bible. It's our Legos that allow us to like jump off and create things. We link everything here. All our Jira projects are linked as well, so that everybody knows where everything is, and they know, okay, let me go straight to the design library and the style guide. And I know if I need to pull down, colors, I can go straight here and get the exact colors that are present in our application and that are allowed to be used.
Yeah, and I'll take this time real quick. I know if these visuals are a little hard to see for some folks, you can try this yourself. We have a very generous free plan, so feel free to hop on Zeppelin and give it a try yourself. But Colleen, back to what you mentioned, talking about that source of truth, Legos. What kind of problems, I think you kind of touched on this already, but what kind of problems in your own words do you feel like you run into without Zeppelin, without a source of truth?
You have people trying to make their own Legos when the Legos already exist. And you have people doing the Legos in two different ways, and you end up with, off-brand Legos that don't necessarily work. Without a source of truth or one place, people do their best guess. You have people doing color picking, and you don't know what kind of monitor they have. So, or if they're color picking a screenshot, and then you end up with this disjointed colors that are off. They might be close, but it's not exact. And here you end up with consistent, like you see when spacing is spelled out on that 8 pixel grid that we use, you know that, okay, if it's something that looks really tight and I'm not sure, like 8 pixels, 16, like, small, medium, large, like, what kind of grid you're on, the spacing, that, like, okay, our primary call to action is always going to be Accushield green. And our secondary call to action is always going to be Accushield blue. And our tertiary call to action is always going to be Accushield royal. Just knowing what that hierarchy is in those design elements and having that hierarchy of Legos that are spec'd out, that, like, okay, I need a table. I'm going to go get that table Lego. But I might need to be able to do like some edits or be able to like add in like maybe like a single select a radio button, but maybe it's a multi-select. I can add in check boxes, and you have those like spec'd out here so you can grab those components and still create and innovate. But you have that source of truth where it tells you all those different things that you need to know about those elements and how they work, and what the different states are and what the rules are, so that you don't have to worry about like creating, like I said earlier, and wasting some time about how the design of those individual elements are, which allows you to scale faster, and it allows for you and your development team to innovate and not worry about basic creating. It gives you like, you're like on Top Chef. You get to just run and go.
Yeah, and tell me a bit more about that run and go and how that translates more into like the design system world.
So, everybody has had, like, almost everybody probably on the call has worked at a company where everyone's like, yes, we're going to do our own design system. We're going to build it from scratch. And then you're 6 months in and you still have not decided on your primary brand colors and what those primary brand colors are going to translate for devices. And, or like if you're going to, what your buttons are going to look like or how many states and things like that. So you just start having those long conversations. And unfortunately, a design system is great, but a design system doesn't make your company money or translate to your users being able to use something if it's taking 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
We all know in today's society, people want things now. They don't want them later. So we don't have 3 years to build a design system. And let's be honest, most of the time, that's what it takes to build a design system from scratch.
Right.
So by leveraging like good open source materials, like Material or even the Apple Design Hig, you're able to like innovate more quickly and to take those great experiences to your customers faster. And then by adding that layer of Zeplin on top, you're able to do it even faster. So instead of spending time discussing drop downs, you're discussing, well, wouldn't it be cool if we had a little bit of a shake here, and it like when the button filled in, it had a nice little highlight that would drive that user's eye to click on that call to action.
Mm-hmm. And I know you have another slide coming up next on like the Zeplin style guide specifically. Talk a little bit about, I guess, how this has helped your team.
I mean, it makes onboarding a new designer easy. So you literally, you give the designer access to Figma, you give them access to Zeplin, you give them the library. They can go and see the documentation of what our rules are for each of these different elements, rather than like digging into, like I said, everybody knows that Figma is like this infinite canvas, whereas Zeplin breaks things up into those chunks. And we all know that like hierarchy of needs, we all have short attention spans and we like learn things better if they're chunked. Zeplin does that chunking for you, which then makes it easier for your developers and your designers that are onboarding to go and look at those elements and learn how they work within your system. Zeplin breaks it down. You can see here it shows you orientation, like the type, the size, like primary, secondary, like the different colors, like the modes. You can see all that, get all that, play with it, and then you learn the system more quickly because, like I said, it's chunking it into smaller pieces instead of this giant infinite canvas that that doesn't allow for you to absorb anything quickly.
Right. And I think like this goes well into kind of realizing that step 5 that you have, which we're going to get to now. So yeah, walk me through like, I guess that completion of your like design system roadmap.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you can see with some of these screenshots, we've been able to like lift and shift to more modern, efficient UI. Like it's consistent. Everybody knows it's part of the Accushield brand. You don't question like if you're jumping from one type of application to the other. They all look like a family of apps within one platform. And without Zeplin and Zeplin helping us adopt our design system, we would still be working on to do this. We're able to build stuff 50 to 60% faster. I know everyone's like, what? No. Like the power of Zeppelin is that you get everything and everything's specced out. Everybody knows where the source of truth is. They know if something's being reused across applications or apps or pages, so they can see that use and that reuse, which then leads to less you don't have everybody coding the same buttons for 5 different pages. You get that reuse, and it just allows for you to just dream up new things and to keep building.
Right. And I guess, that's a great segue into what have you built? Show us kind of like that final design, post design system, post all this implementation of Zeppelin, all of that.
So you can see here, we have a more consistent, clean UI with our mobile app. You can sign in and out. You have these little cues. You have a call to action. You have great, like Elliot, the main designer on this. You can see the call to action. You can see the visitor types. You can select locations. You know where you're going. Like you don't have too much color. Everything's consistent. And like, I'm just going to pop back one. You can see from the dashboard to the mobile app, like, that this is the same family from not only the look and feel, the consistency, the fonts, the colors. And that's possible because we have our design system very clearly specced out in Zeppelin, and everything's there as that primary source of truth. So it's allowed us to do and create this beautiful enterprise system that is taking senior living into the 22nd century.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And so we can dive actually right into, we got some questions from the audience. So I want to, make sure we get to those. From Christina, how did you get your developers on board, I guess, with using the design system? Ours did not see the benefit of the design system and build everything on their own.
So what you have to do is you have to explain that, like, I always say, okay, do you want to, like, when you say, like, they wanted to build everything from scratch, I always say, well, what if we could start with, like, a library and contribute to that library? You sometimes have to talk in developer terms and be like, no, this is not like cheating, or this is a new way to learn to do things and to do things faster. Like, do you want to work on skunk work or do you want to innovate? Like, the big thing that I always emphasize is a design system allows you to innovate and really create cool things and not just work on, okay, a button. This is what it does now. This is whatever. Instead, you get to work on, like, those higher interactions and those use cases that you wouldn't necessarily get to immediately, where you're trying to encourage people to fill out a form or to scan their driver's license to have a more like quick entry method.
Right, right. And I think that's like kind of calls back to like that first step that you mentioned, which is define, right? Like how do you define like the business goals, not just for leadership to pitch the design system, but also to your coworkers, your teams that you'll be working with, like the dev team, explaining like, hey, this is like why we need this. In your words, you know, we want to do more with a lean design team. We want to ship products faster and then give customers a consistent, high quality experience. I think those are all things that resonate with your developers as well.
Yeah, and a design system is just technology that you're leveraging. It's maybe not what people immediately think of as technology, but people don't think of fire or the wheel as technology, but those are both technological advances. They're something that was made with, out of something else. I always say, like, um, you can create something out of nothing. And you always like a design system is like always having a screwdriver. You always know that you're going to be able to, create and screw things together to build. Um, and sometimes you have to sell people on like, this is technology. Like, so if we don't do the design system, are we going to maintain multiple libraries? A design system is one library.
Right.
Like it's one thing that you can plug and play, like yank in and out, change in one area and propagate across your system. Um, I find like describing it that way and using it as a technology and not just emphasizing, oh, the visual consistency. It's literally a technology that just helps you move forward and move forward more quickly.
For sure. Everybody wants to work faster. Another question from Anthony. He mentioned how he heard you say Zeplin is a source of truth, not the code. Do you run into issues when something isn't built pixel perfect and the code doesn't exactly match what was in Zeplin?
I mean, we all have that. Let's be honest. You're never going to have anything that's 100%. Um, like human beings, technology, code, is ever evolving. You're always going to have like those one-offs that you're going to have to fix. We're never going to be perfect. We're going to make mistakes a million times a day. I know I've made like 20 today. You have to have grace, and you're going to see that. But the thing is like by having the design system, you're going to get 90% there. And I had a boss named Noah say, we want things to pass the squint test, so we want to get the design system in.
Mm-hmm.
And once it passes the squint test, then you can go and you can get on those like really nuanced details. But you also have to remind yourself that when you're stack ranking some of those things and you're like, oh, like I'm somebody that can literally see if something's 2 pixels off.
Mm-hmm.
You have to say, are my users going to notice that? Like, that's also the thing that you have to like
Prioritize
a lot of that stuff. Like, if it's something that's like blatantly out of the design system, obviously that's a stack rank 0. No go. We got to fix that. But if it's like, okay, you used the wrong blue, and I'm the only one noticing that this is the dark shade of the blue, not the primary.
Mm-hmm.
We can let that go and bug it. So you kind of have to pick your battles and learn to negotiate. Because
Right.
a lot of the time I found with having the design system, that stuff gets caught by QA before it even comes to your face. So
Right. It's about, I think like even with Zeppelin, we don't, you won't achieve true perfection, but it's like minimizing it to the point where, or minimizing the errors to the point where it's very manageable, and you don't have to go back and forth all the time.
right. And if you look at human beings, no one's face is exactly symmetrical, and both of our eyes aren't the same, each half of our face. A design system gets you almost there.
Right.
A design system is basically like the same idea as like we all have ears. They're not all the same, but we know they're ears.
Right. Another question from the audience, and then I had one for myself actually. But so this is from Linda. We found that developers don't read onboarding docs. How do you get developers actually using Zeppelin?
Um, I know that some developers don't. I find that, how do I say this without being mean? I tend to do the disappointed parent where I'm like, oh, you would know if you read this and share it multiple times. And then like send the link like I'll, making sure if they're like, oh, I don't know how to do this. And I'm like, well, we had a training. Do we need another training? Like I constantly offer, I'm like, do we need to do a call and do a refresher? Um, we all have to do, HR trainings and all those different things. And like, we have to exercise to stay healthy and we have to drink water.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that. Like, sometimes you have to just remind people and like be like, hey, and, a lot of times they're like, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. I will literally just copy and paste and put the link to, with, if somebody hasn't read something, like I'll explain it, put the direct documentation from Zeplin, link it, and in a Slack channel where it's everybody or the Jira ticket, and just do kind of like that, oh, maybe you missed this, like kind of disappointed parent, like but always, just keep, I'd rather people ask questions even if I know that they didn't read what they were supposed to, and just keep re-educating, because eventually they're going to be like, if I don't read this, Colleen's just going to keep sending it to me.
Yeah, just got it's always a battle, I think, is getting that adoption. And I think my question kind of comes from the same realm. So I know this is something that we hear at Zeplin a lot when we have design teams try to onboard their other teams with Zeplin. How do you deal with pushback from adding a tool to your team's workflow, both from like a budget perspective and also people not wanting to learn yet another thing?
I mean, to me, Zeppelin is a necessity as a designer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, it's a tool you have to learn,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a tool you need to learn. It works with everything and really specs out everything. I know that a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to learn another tool. I didn't want to switch from Sketch, or switch from Photoshop to Sketch.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody decided, we were at my team, we're deciding we were going to Sketch.
Mm-hmm.
So then we switched to Sketch.
Right.
And I was like, whatever, this is part of my job. I have to learn it. You have to tell yourself and tell these people, like, I know you don't like this, but this is what we're doing, and this is a part of our process.
Set in your ways.
Yeah. Right. And like, here's the deal. Your check's going to cash even while you're learning this. You just have to tell. It's like school. It's like, I don't want to do this book report, but hey, they're paying me to learn this.
Yeah.
So you just have to learn it. It's the process. Like, I worked, like, I didn't want to use Sketch, and I had to use Sketch. So I used Sketch. And then
you're on Figma.
Then we're going to like or whatever Adobe's thing was for a hot second, and then Figma. And I was like, can we just pick one?
Like you said, keep evolving.
Yeah, everything keeps evolving, but the consistency for me across like all those different UI creation like platforms is that Zeplin has been the consistency across multiple organizations for me, and has worked with each of those new actors, because it's designed by developers and designers. So it's that seamless going, like it creates a clear, I was going to say it bridges the language gap. Like, designers speak French and developers speak Chinese.
Google Translate.
It allows it translated it. It gives you that consistent look and feel across the board.
Right.
But yeah, again, like, we all do things we don't want to do, and like, you just have to say, this is a part of your job. You got to learn.
Yeah. I think we have one more question from the audience, and then we'll let everyone get back to their days, including yourself. I know you have a lot to do. This is from Nick. He says, we have a design system. How do we get designers to stop detaching instances and not using auto layouts in their designs?
So when you have a design, this is what I do with my team. We regularly have reviews with each other. If people are detaching instances and not, it doesn't go. You have to do reviews and you have to consistently have somebody sign off. Use approvals in Zeplin. That is something that we're doing. Like where we need to clean up our information architecture at that top level. So we're really pushing no, this can't, you have to fix it. And as much as I would also in those reviews say, why are you detaching this? What is not there that you need? Let's discuss this.
That disappointed parent.
Yeah, what is there? Yeah, it's that disappointed, and it's also have a dialogue, because maybe if it's people are consistently detaching one object, that means that something's missing from there that they need for creation. And having those reviews and asking those questions, and it also everything I do, my team sanity checks, and everything they do, we sanity check each other. It's you have to critique. And we even do reviews with our product owners and also with our development team and engage them sooner than later. You have to have somebody who says, hey, can you look at this and make sure this is right? If you're uploading something into Zeplin and you're seeing a bunch of new detached instances, and it's asking for approval, then you can just be no, we got to have a discussion. We got to meet. We got to have these. Why are these things detached? Why is this spacing not what we decided as a team? We have a source of truth. If there's something that is missing, then let's discuss it and let's fix it as a team.
Right. Okay. Truly last question. We got one more. You said a lot of great things about Zeplin today, but we're humble and we want to be vulnerable. So this person asked, is there anything that you would have liked Zeplin to do better? What can we fix for you? This is your chance to get it into our product team.
Man, I will say that I've been a loudmouth from the South and have asked for a lot, and you guys have given it to me already. Because like I said, I've been
around from the beginning.
I've been around for a while and have been very vocal, and I was one of the first that was oh, we use tags for different states and statuses, and you guys ended up adding that. I mean, I don't know, maybe more video trainings that I could send to, but
you can do that for sure.
And also because I'm going to confess something. Our design system, all the we have 5,000 components because we've done a lot of work as a team and customized where we needed to. It's harder for us to upload our file as a back and forth with the thing. So maybe to be able to handle larger Figma files for the style guide, that's my one thing. Otherwise, they will have to take Zeplin out of my cold dead hands before it's removed from our organization. Cold dead hands. And that's something I've said at every job. I'm when can I add Zeplin? Can we have Zeplin? So, but otherwise, I don't think, other than that, being able to the larger files, to the style guide,
a little faster.
But otherwise, I have no complaints. And if I do, I get them to you guys.
Yeah. We'll make sure we get on them. Colleen, thank you so much for taking the time today. Really appreciate it. Again, for everyone here, if you had any other questions, for Colleen, you can reach out. My email is Elliot, my first name @zeplin.io. I can pass them along to Colleen and follow up. Thank you for taking the time out of your days to be here with us. Again, this recording will be emailed to everyone that attended. With that, have a great day. Again, Colleen, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, guys. Have a great afternoon.